Hello, Boog City Festival. Chavisa Woods, I'm coming to you, not exactly live, but at least unedited, from Southern Illinois. I'm standing in front of my childhood home. This is the house I grew up in. Big old white house built in like 1902 out in, in a pretty rural area in Sandoval, Illinois. I'm just kind of showing you the landscape. The reason I'm here right now is because, unfortunately, a lot of my family members, not all of them, but about half of them, like many people in this area, believe that the vaccine is evil or at least very dangerous. And they have come down with COVID unvaccinated. I think it's probably the Delta strain because they're very sick. One of my relatives, very close relatives, has been in a medically induced coma for several weeks. And he's just starting to revive. And the other one was finally released from the hospital, and I'm here taking care of her. And that's where I am right now. And I'm sure that a lot of people in this country are finding themselves in similar situations, caring for people who we have deep political disagreements with but still love, and watching these people vote against their best interests over and over. So as a lot of you know, a lot of what I write is about rural conservative America and poverty and cycles of abuse and self-destruction. So I am now going to just read 2 poems to share with you because that's where I am today on this very subject. And this one is one some of you might have heard before. It was published in Sensitive Skin anthology several years ago. This is 7 Gifts. Thanks so much. One, de ego God gifu is Latin for the self is the gift of God. 2, cut off these arms and take them down to the broke place of broken trees and give them back their broke arms. Cut off this tongue and unteach it unspeaking from the broke place of violence unarmed, in the forest of violence unspoken of unspoken of armaments. 3, I have found the graveyard hanging above me like a graying hanging plant hanging. I have watched the clouds turn to bones and grow heavy, dropping to the ground to be gnawed by relentless dogs. This does not mean we are rising. 4, be careful now. 5, I never knew you could be dirty in so many ways. There's dirt, there's blood, there's sweat, there's animals. 6, remember when you said I talked funny like a British? Remember before how I was nailing fetus posters to abortion-guilty highways in grandma's bonnets, and you knew God liked me better because I got to see Disney? Remember when I loved the president and wanted to win the war? Remember Reagan? Remember work ethic, individual responsibility? Remember homeless? Remember when mom went to jail and when mom went to jail and when mom went to jail? Remember last month when mom went to jail? Remember how we thought drugs would save us and how drugs did save your second kid because they took it away from you? Remember how white people are better? Remember how they divided us between our dads? Remember when we took acid and I married the tree? Remember the dead cow? Remember that black kid you beat up? Remember that black kid who beat you up? Remember how fucking poor you both were? Remember the gash above your eye and the bruised skin that looked like candy, purple and blue, glistening and swollen, like flesh could gasp? You told me we were just standing outside and we looked at each other. No one said anything. Then we just started hitting. It was like an invisible referee suddenly yelled, "Fight." Remember how I told you, you must be so stupid. What are you, stupid? Remember you were like, guilty as charged, guilty as charged. Remember the blood on your fists, the blood on the tree, the blood on the sheets. Remember living in motels, Remember the guy Mom stabbed? Remember when I found you passed out in a pan filled with your own vomit and the stove was open heating the house and your girlfriend OD'd on meth that night? Remember that magician on Cirque du Soleil who pulled himself up by his bootstraps, hovering? Remember when your dad went to jail? Remember when you went to jail? Remember how they say went to jail like it's something you do voluntarily? Remember when anarchy became a punk rock song and how socialism is like Hitler? Remember the second stanza? Remember language poetry? Remember the sweating horse, the cigar statue Indian holding his hand palm up, how the sunlight seemed to tick? Remember pebbles, writing in truck beds? Remember when you went to jail again? Remember when I left and Mom tried to give me that gun and she said, "Don't worry, it's not registered." Remember how everyone's so patriotic? Remember when they hated the Russians, when they hated the Mexicans, when they hated the Muslims? Remember when they hated me? They never came out and said why, not to me anyway. Did they to you? Do you remember? Remember, they hate you too. Remember, they hate each other. Remember, everyone's gonna burn in hell. Remember, they hate themselves. Remember how they hate where they are and how they hate what they do and how they love their country. Remember how they love their country and hate their government. Remember how they vote. Remember how they like to torture things, animals, people, cheese. Remember how they must hate cheese. Remember Velveeta. Remember pit bulls, the mattress the rat bled on, and how clear the stars are. Remember being stoned beneath them. Remember how I held you. Remember how I left. Remember how you're still there. Remember how you're still there. 7. Cut off these armaments and take them down to the place of trees and give them back their violence. Cut off these breasts and make them 2 suns, 2 pale suns to light your hiding sky. Cut off this unteaching and give them tongues back, their broke speech armed, unspeaking in the forest, waiting in the broke trees, armed. Okay, so that was 7 gifts. Thank you for listening. This has been quite a couple of months, quite a year, quite a life, I guess. I'm gonna read one more poem, and yeah, thanks for coming out to the field with me, and or the beginning of the field anyway. It goes pretty far. I always used to walk down this path out to the pond and then through the golf course, which is like right over there, and then back into the creek, and we'd swim in the golf course when it flooded. That was fun. There's some things I liked about the country, just all the I don't know, conservative bigotry and superstition, you know. It leaves a dark mark on the psyche. Anyway, this is Green Zircon, and it's about a night walking in the golf course with my cousin many, many years ago. One sec. Poverty's fertile plant roots at the base of the trimmed pond willow, whose weep is not permitted to touch ground now, because nearby trailer park children like to hide there and shout obscenities at the moment golfers swung pricey sticks against dented orbs. Over the years since I last saw you, you have turned 16, and your expression has fallen lower than the shadowed sand trap, and your eyes seem to be digging themselves deeper instead of out. Each day our family places 2 pills before you, and you willingly swallow, the means of your own constraint. I find it stunning how your throat guides its oppression, bobbing past Adam's apple, and the tiny ticking noise your tongue makes against ice water as our stern and beloved grandmother watches, barely nodding, as your sunken eyes meet mine in the silent beg of a prisoner knowing someone else in the room knows they are innocent. Innocence's tears wet the blades as we walk in medicated silence of midnight over the grounds of the empty golf course. You lead me to the castrated weeping pond willow and silently snatch up a toad with the quick snatch of a boy, familiar with nature's stealth. I flinch and you assure me you are done killing things that are not yourself, at least for now. You apologize for dead rabbits, birds, thousands of dismembered insects, emerald mush like this toad's brilliant skin, flashing under the assault of your light, its glassy eyes moving in ripples, plasmic spheres, deciphering everything of our humanity. It seems to be pointing to something very near us that I will never perceive. You hold it like a pistol pointing to apologies for dead rabbits, and I realize you are still young enough to be honest. You apologize for insects, but I recall the molesting of the dog and your pregnant mother pushed down the stairs most vividly. I do not mention or seek recourse for these childhood atrocities, but wish to apologize to you. And no forgiveness will never be found, not even possibly snatched from the imperceptible shadows. We are unforgivably American. Violence is seeping from you, wetting your stiffened skin and rippling your eyes to unconscionable revenge, deciphering everything of humanity. I touch its gooey head before it is released into the water, sending a small splash, unsettling the surface, never reaching the water's edge, where poverty's fertile plant roots at the base of the trimmed pond willow, whose weep is not permitted. Well, thank you so much for listening. There's many bugs here. There's a lot of beauty here. I wish that, I don't know, it kind of reminds me of that Toni Morrison line that's so famous. It makes you wonder if maybe hell is a pretty place too. Anyway, signing off from Southern Illinois. Thanks for listening.